Wow, it started recording on its own. Let's see. So this is going to be an opinionated Beatles-related video. Uh, it's something that's been on my mind for years and years, and I've never really had it click as to what it is. So I think I have a way of putting into words somewhat now, which is that my favorite Beatles stuff is the stuff that starts when they start to go psychedelic. Um, Mostly beginning with Rubber Soul a little bit, but really hitting perfection for me with Revolver and, of course, Sergeant Pepper, though I think I ultimately like uh, other stuff by them more. I mean, in some of the tracks on Sergeant Pepper I don't love. Um, but then even though Magical Mystery Tour as a movie was a huge failure, I love the music they were making at that time, and my favorite album by them ultimately is the White Album, um, and the songs that they threw together for the half side of Yellow Submarine I also really enjoy. So that's the period of the Beatles that I enjoy the most, especially anything that is really adventurous with sound, doing interesting, coming up with interesting noises, basically, and effects and approaches and subject matter. And I mean, the early stuff is good too, but it's in a totally different vein, almost like a different group. Um, and Let It Be and Abbey Road are in a totally different category for me. I mean, almost like, again, like a totally different band. Um, some of what they were doing throughout that later period, they were trying different things to either stay fresh or to go back to their roots, or dealing with Brian Epstein's death, and the fact that they were having difficulties amongst each other and trying to find different ways to deal with that. Uh, anyway, so first came the Let It Be sessions, which I guess they were trying to get back to some extent what they were doing in Hamburg, where they were just going to be a rock and roll, more of a roots almost kind of group, just performing live with not lots of overdubbing and effects and studio stuff. Um, and for me, that was for me personally. Again, I'm very opinionated, but I'm going to try not to sound. I don't know. I forget the word I was going to use. But anyway, so I don't like Let It Be near as much. Though again, I like all the Beatles albums to some extent. I mean, there's something good on every single one. Multiple things good on every single one. But for me, after the White Album, Let It Be and Abbey Road are a huge disappointment. Um, anyway, so like when I was in my teens, I got some of the Let It Be bootlegs, and so I heard the origins of a lot of those songs, and oh my God, the sessions just went on, and to me, I had more bootlegs of that than I needed to hear. Although I love the extra long version of Dig It, which is one of my favorite things on that album, just because it's more, again, it's playful and weird, and I find it interesting, whereas a lot of people, I'm sure, don't appreciate it at all. And then Abbey Road, there's something turning in my mind with that, just as there is with Let It Be. There's a turning in my mind of Let It Be and Abbey Road as far as what's going on. I guess it's leading into the 70s and the sort of abstract overripeness that I feel like the 70s gave to a lot of music and culture. Like the 60s with this marvelous um, exploration and discovery decade, and the 70s was this sort of bad hangover from all the half-baked ideas that didn't really work out, and that led to things like the Nixon administration and Watergate, and anyway, so on Abbey Road, I really should pull up a track listing and address this track by track, which again, people aren't going to agree with my takes on this at all, probably. Come Together like one thing I want to do is make my own abbreviated mix of Abbey Road, uh, excising some songs and maybe shortening other ones. And as with a lot of things that you've heard all your freaking life on the radio, there's some songs that you just don't need to listen to very often because you've heard them so many times. It's just ground that is too deeply repeated in your mind. Come Together is pretty good. And again, I'm a big John Lennon fan, not as much of a Paul and George fan, although I think both of them have genius moments. I think for me, their songs and their solo careers pale in comparison. Not that John Lennon always was firing on all cylinders in his solo career, but I think there's so much more interesting stuff going on there, and I like the songs a whole lot better, with the exception of All Things That Must Pass. I will admit is a very good album. And Paul McCartney obviously wrote some great pop songs in his solo and Wings career. Something is a song that I'm sort of tired of. Maxwell's Silver Hammer, I think, is kind of drill, honestly. Oh Darling is okay, but again, I've heard it too many times. Octopus's Garden is a song I don't really need at all. I Want You, She's So Heavy has interesting elements, but it's not something I need to return to very often. Here Comes the Sun is a very refreshing song, and a very good song, but unfortunately I've heard it way too many times. And I know you could say this about a lot of Beatles songs, but like the songs on Revolver, and even the songs on Sgt. Pepper, and the songs on White Album, it's like I can never feel oversaturated with those songs for some reason, whereas these I become saturated with and need to take a huge break before I hear them again. Because is an interesting song. You Never Give Me Your Money. I don't really like that song, but as it goes into the rocking elements at the end, basically side 2 is all about leading up to the jam at the end for me. Sun King is okay. Mean Mr. Mustard is okay. Polythene Pam, I think, is just really fun and rocking. She Came In Through the Bathroom Window. Again, that's building up to something rocking that works for me. Golden Slumbers. Again, it's part of leading up to the big jam, so I understand the whole process of that part of the record. Carry That Weight, same thing. The end, where there are those 3 distinct guitar solos by the John, Paul, and George. Those are just awesome. I mean, to me, that's the best part of the album. The end is fine. Her Majesty, I think, is a complete waste. Anyway, but overall, it's a record that I don't need to return to very often, or if I would probably just play side 2 more of the time. And mostly Polythene Pam onward, honestly. Anyway, so I'm going to try to make my own edited mini CD of that, and maybe have that somewhere where other people could hear that version. Obviously, wouldn't be anyway. So I just want to get down those thoughts that love the Beatles, and but for some reason those last 2 records, it kind of makes sense that they broke up, because they were getting to the point where they were like the four wheels were going at different speeds, and they were starting to rumble off the car. And obviously, I wish John Lennon hadn't been assassinated, and that there would have been an opportunity for them to maybe get back together 20 years later and see what would have happened. That certainly could have happened. Not to mention all his things like seeing Yoko and Sean working with people like Sonic Youth. Would have been really interesting if John had worked with Sonic Youth, or who knows who else he might have worked with. He had obviously some famous workings with Bowie and Elton John, etc. And it would have been interesting to see what other projects he would have had. Anyway, I hope I expressed some of what I intended to express, and sorry if you hate what I had to say.